From the studios of WSEE, this is the Newswatch Insider with Kelly Gaughan.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Gaughan. This morning we are turning our attention to the youth in our community. Specifically, we're talking about an organization called ErieKIDS. ErieKIDS provides community education and information services through a prevention model. Their mission is to promote the mental, emotional, and social health and wellness of children and families. We certainly do have a lot to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get started. My guest this morning is Natalie, the president and founder of ErieKIDS. Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming in. This is a pleasure to meet you. I can't believe I haven't met you before, and there's so much to talk about with ErieKIDS. So before we get to the fun part of your job, which I would assume is the movies that you produce, let's talk about ErieKIDS. Why did you create this organization?
I think what I would say is that we decided that this organization was really necessary for a couple of reasons. One, Erie County, I think we all know that Erie County is really well known for just its abundance of amazing social service agencies. With Stairways and Safe Harbor, Sarah Reed Achievement Center, Family Services, there are so many talented folks working for these agencies who are providing direct care to families who have children who are mentally ill, or the families may have a member who's mentally ill. And so we felt that there's all these great therapists out there, but at some point our numbers, the sheer volume of folks that we were seeing in our offices, in their homes, were growing. We just can't keep up. And we made a decision early that if we continue to invest our resources, our intellectual resources, financial resources into intervention, we'll run out of people and money soon enough. That our focus needed to be about preventing these problems that kids have before they even start. What I would say is that it's pretty clear to me that the struggles that kids have are very different than the struggles that adults have, because kids are fresh and they're resilient, and they're not so deeply traumatized in the way that we might be because we've been around the block so much. So we felt if we could put our energy there into kids when they're very young, preschool kids through 5th and 6th grade, not only will we be able to help bypass some of these problems they have, but we also will save taxpayer money. Now,
talk about your goals, because when I was on your website, I really liked the fact that there was a lot of tips on parenting, and so explain your goals to our audience.
Sure. I think what we really feel like is we want to saturate the Web 2.0 generation with as much information, with as much content as possible in the way in which they learn. So whether it's through our website, whether it's through YouTube, or the videos that we produce, we want to meet those kids and families where they're at, give them the information through a medium that makes sense to them. The ideas of a pamphlet or those kind of things just don't really resonate with kids these days. So we're trying to be contemporary in our approach.
Well, your website is www.eriekids.org, and I think it's important to leave that on the screen so that people know where it is to find this information. And you said instead of handing out pamphlets to the kids or to the parents, directing them to that website is really important. So if someone at home decided to log on to eriekids.org, tell us what they would find.
Well, they'd find some information for parents on better parenting tips. They'd find information about divorce and the impact of divorce. They'd find a number of video logs that we've produced, or I should say maybe a redirection to YouTube where we store those. And they'd find that we are a very interested and welcome group to have them speak to us through the web about the things they're struggling with. Sometimes folks just have a question, and we wanted to be available to answer them.
So you could log on and actually ask a question to ErieKIDS, and you would get an educated answer.
Hopefully.
So that's pretty simple. Yeah. That's wonderful.
That's right.
And are you finding that people are doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Interestingly, it is a safe mechanism for them to touch base with us, because sometimes it's tough walking into a counselor's office.
Absolutely. One of the things that I jotted down this morning when I was thinking about the program was it really is a positive use of the internet. Clearly, ErieKIDS is much more than just your website, but you hear so much about the troubles on the internet and the dangers, and I noted that this really is a positive use of the internet for kids as well as their families.
Absolutely. We try to maintain a certain climate on our website, so that whether it's a young child or a parent who's visiting, if the content's appropriate, that they can find what they need. And our main goal is, because we don't know everything, we want to make it easy for them to touch base with us. So we've added that piece in as well.
Now I'm looking at one of your pamphlets here, and it says ErieKIDS, education is our business. Tell me what type of education you're talking about.
Anything that has to do with raising children to be resilient. That's our goal. Whether it, primarily we are mental health and drug and alcohol minded professionals. But so often we get requests to come out and talk at school functions or community groups about situations that have very little to do with mental health. They're just kind of run-of-the-mill, how do we be better parents kind of questions.
Right. Well, everyone always says when they have children, there really isn't a handbook.
Right.
You take this baby home from the hospital and good luck.
That's right.
So you hear that so often, but yet nothing has really happened. It's still the same way. So this is really a great resource for the community.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You're a family therapist, and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I think probably before I'm anything, I'm the youngest child of a big Sicilian family, and probably the greatest education I got was on 18th Street, where I grew up under the control, I would say, of my father and my mom, who really taught me about loyalty and love and the values that they learned from their parents who were first-generation Americans. So that's really where my education started, and from there, my father, who was a police officer, kind of instilled in all of us kids this need to serve, and so most of my siblings are in some kind of servant role. From there, I just really got into this idea that I wanted to be with kids and families that just fit for me, and went to school and started working for family services, and then opened my private practice, and it's been terrific since.
Well, we are going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we kind of mentioned the movies that you're involved in, but we're going to watch some clips and really talk about your latest project.
Great.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our guest this morning is Jeffrey Natalie, the president and founder of ErieKIDS. And I mentioned at the beginning of the program, films are a big part of what you do at ErieKIDS, which I think is so interesting. Clearly not your background, but such a great diversion. I think it's really neat. So tell me why you decided to break into the movie biz.
I think I'd like to believe anyways, a young person, kind of figured out early on that we needed to meet kids where they were at, that some of the mechanisms that are in place in the culture in which I grew up just don't work anymore. And with music and television being such a huge part of that culture, the young person's culture, we felt we needed to meet them there, and decided that television or videos were the way to do that.
And what I think is so neat is you produce these films, and then it's your hope to distribute them to the schools so that all the kids in Erie County have a chance to see them. And you do this free of charge.
That's right.
That's incredible.
Oh, thank you. This is the first year that we received some funding, which we're very pleased with. The Erie Community Foundation gave us a very generous grant to complete the movie and make sure that we had enough to distribute throughout the county, and then some.
Tell me about some of the topics that you've covered. You've done 3 movies so far, right? So let's talk about the very first one.
Well, the first one's called Lost in Erie, and really, Kelly, that was all we intended to do.
Okay.
It was meant to have fun and for us to reach out to the community. But it's what we call a primer movie. It's on anxiety, depression, and anger. And I was on the air with a fellow colleague of yours, and she put me on the spot and said, "So will there be more?" And I didn't intend to do more, and I said, oh, of course there'll be more.
Yeah.
And so we committed to doing 3 others.
Okay.
And then we rolled into our second movie, Emily Gets Angry.
Okay. And now the third movie we want to talk the most about because it is called In the Middle, and it's about to debut in November. So